radio nasty!
My name is Matt Gleason. I'm an art critic, and I'm very thrilled to introduce to you one of the greatest living artists, one of the paragons of American art of late 20th and early 21st century, a master craftsman, draftsman, and acid head. Founder of Juxtapose magazine, of the highbrow of lowbrow, and a great guy, Robert Williams.
Thank you very much. With an introduction like that, it's going to be kind of hard to feign modesty. I don't know how many people here are familiar with me and my artwork, but I am an alternative artist, what's called a lowbrow artist, and I've been painting for 55 years. Been in the Los Angeles area since '63. In the late 60s, I got involved in Zap Comics, the underground comics, and with Robert Crumb and a few people. And so the work I'm going to show you reflects enormous irreverence for our culture in some respects. The first time that I actually had a peer group of other artist friends, because I was a realist, and realist was certainly out of vogue. The first time I had a peer group of artists was punk rock art in the late 70s and early 80s. So a portion of this work that I'm going to show you is designed to instill energy and bring up your heart rate. Almost none of this work that I'm going to show you is decorator items. It's thinking items and stimulation. The work done in the punk rock period really depends an enormous amount on gratuitous sex and violence in a comic style. And if you think, well, gosh, this stuff's just kind of ridiculous. Well, it's ridiculous to the point of poetry. So I'm gonna try to make this as entertaining as possible. I'm going to buzz through this thing fairly fast because there's a lot of imagery to show you. Without further ado, I'm going to get started here. This was a painting that was done in 1968 when I was working for Ed Big Daddy Roth, and I painted this at night while I was living in Hollywood. This is certainly a psychedelic picture, and the name of this is The Land of Retinal Delights. This is a group shot of Zap comic book artists in the early 70s, and you can see Spain Rodriguez, Escalade Wilson, myself, Rick Griffin, Gilbert Shelton, Robert Crumb, and Victor Moscoso. That was the 7 artists that made up Zap Comics. That is the first cover I did for Zap Comics in 1969. You can see that I was highly polluted and influenced by comic books. This is my first art book that came out in 1979 called The Lowbrow Art of Robert Williams. And this is where the word lowbrow come into the art lexicon. This is my second book called Zombie Mystery Paintings that dealt strictly in the most ridiculous punk rock art that, as I mentioned earlier, really leaned heavily to gratuitous sex and violence, and consequently I had an enormous amount of feminist problems. My third book, Visual Addiction, as you can see, I started incorporating backgrounds in it, and stuff getting a little tighter, and before long I left the punk rock world and got into much more representational art. This painting was done in 1968. It's Ernestine and the Venus of Polyethylene, and I used to make a lot of my own colors. The red was made out of day glow that I hand ground, and the white highlights were made out of fish scales, so they reflected light in the room. This is another large painting I did in the late 60s, early 70s, and I don't know, I'm going to just keep going on these things. This is the fellow I worked for in Maywood, California from 1965 to 1970, the famous hot rod builder Ed Big Daddy Roth, and he's holding one of my props, the Cyclops skull. Here's two of my children, two 32 Fords, both in primer. The one to your left is a 32 Ford Roadster, and the one to the right is a 32 Ford 3-Window Coupe. This is before they were painted. This is after they were painted. Here's an early hot rod picture I did that set a style in hot rodding here. This is a very small picture called Hot Rod Race. It shows a lot of action and theatrics. This was a large wall mural I did when Lace was downtown in 1985. It was up for 3 months and then they painted over. Okay, this is starting my punk rock pictures called Zombie Mystery Paintings. Now, some of the paintings you saw earlier required an enormous amount of time, skill, and energy to do. These I could slap out really quick and they sold fast. So you see the intellectual content is greatly impacted on these. Okay, now remember, this is not for your Bible school class. This is not for everybody. This is for a select bunch of young people that hung out at after-hours clubs after a night of indulgence, drugs, and whatnot. So the primary interest in a painting like this was to energize a person as soon as they saw it. This was painted on cheap jute canvas, and it was designed to stand an enormous amount of abuse, being spit on and cut and puked on and whatnot. The more restoration work on a painting like this, the better it looked. Here's another one. And even another one. Now you see the subject matter here is outre. Saying outre would be putting it lightly. Okay, now that's kind of crafty looking. Okay, now this painting here illustrates a young boy coming to grips with his growing libido and his hormones, and coming to the realization of the female body. A painting like this is, I don't know, you just certainly wouldn't want to have this in a hospital lobby or something. This ended up in the Getty collection, and then they sold it at a fairly sizable profit. Here's another picture eulogizing the pulchritudes of female. And another one. Now, these were painted very fast. They were painted in one coat. There's no messing around with them. And as I said before, they were successful sellers. This painting is incidentally in public view over here at David Lawrence's booth. This was done in the early 80s. And it's, what can I tell you? I mean, it's an eyeful. You can understand in the 80s when feminism was on the rise how I incurred the wrath of the feminist movement, such as here. But with its cultural shortcomings, it does have energy. A painting like that will wake you up. Composition is energetic, the color use, and whatnot.
Are you as controversial among the feminist set as you once were, especially when these were...
Well, I'm an old man now, and the feminist movement's cooled down, and I've kind of slowed down myself. Okay, I would like for you to look at this. I have a little short story. A friend of mine bought this painting. He was a film director. He lived in Hollywood. He was right off Fairfax. He was pretty well known at the time. And he come home one night, and the cops were in the alley, saw him come in. So the cops got him out of his car, and he happened to have a gun on him. The cops were questioning him. Some way he diverted their attention long enough that he could run inside his apartment there and hide the gun. The police followed him in and jerked him back outside, threw him over the fender of the car, handcuffed him, and then went inside and found the gun under the couch. After about an hour, hour and a half, all the cops came outside, went over and undid his handcuffs and says, "Listen, buddy, if you ever pull a trick like that again, we're just going to beat the hell out of you." And then the cops left. And then he went inside where his girlfriend was. He said, "What was these cops doing in here for an hour and a half?" She said, "Looking at that painting." Okay, when I was a child, my parents told me, do not stick your hands outside the car. Because there was a guy out there on the side of the highway with a knife. You know? So, all my life I had been haunted by this arm whacker. And I had to express this saying, while driving near or driving far, don't stick your hands outside the car. So the arm whacker. Okay, this is just some Ryball action, early painting. This sold at the Psychedelic Solution in the 80s in New York. Now, this was one of the many paintings I did with female pulchritude and food. And I was kind of playing on both ends of the libido here. As you can see, lurid wouldn't even start to describe this. But the comic book influences are enormous in this. And the energy in this thing is multifold. Here's a scenario on innocence, violating innocence. This is a very, very large painting of a cowgirl that has trouble fighting off beatniks. She's laying out there on a chili dog. This painting, Carne de Amore, has been very, very popular with the Latino community.
Is there a female counterpart? A visual retort with men on food?
No, that would welcome. Here's an infirmed person in a sanitarium that has emotional problems over the nurse. Okay, a painting like this, I mean, it's just enormously energetic, and it, to call this lowbrow, you'd be even getting off easy. This painting is designed just to charge you up like a battery. Now let me defend something like this. This painting will be in a house that's got computer games and television and music and all the stuff that the painting has to compete with. So I would say, attention-wise and emotionally, this painting would hold its own. Okay, this particular piece of artwork here, illustrating views of what the future might be like, was on the cover of the Los Angeles Times calendar section in 1992, touting the art show Helter Skelter. So something as curious as this got quite a bit of recognition. Okay, I've had people of faith and religious people, people with spiritual values, talk to me about this picture. Now, you've got a honky-tonk up there in the left-hand corner called Deuteronomy Lounge, a little cartoon Jesus, then a naked girl on a bacon and tomato sandwich, and then here's Jesus Christ, our Savior, up in the right in drag. Now, I have been approached about religious people on a number of cases having me answer for my blasphemy on this, and I simply put it this way. I don't think Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, would appreciate today seeing himself represented as a logo, as a naked man nailed to lumber. Now this is a good one for the event we're at now. This is Decorator General. It's illustrating the beauties of aesthetics and art. Okay. One of my favorite foods is oysters, especially fried oysters, and I've eaten them since a child. I've eaten hundreds of thousands of oysters, and I know one of these days I'm going to hit that bad oyster. The name of this painting is The Day Joe Smiley Ate the Bad Oyster. Okay, now this is pretty lurid. You know, this is, I've revealed myself here as an open lecture. And there's like really no way I can intellectually defend myself on this particular picture, other than, as Paul Schimmel at Mocha said about me, he is what he is. Okay, the name of this painting is The Violation of Mathematics. Mathematics takes a holiday, and this is where physics is violated. See, the Harley-Davidson flying up in the sky, and the whole ground is on a parabolic plane and whatnot. I come from a family that had drive-in restaurants back in the 40s and 50s, so the romance of the drive-in has always stuck with me, especially car hops. I've always had a warm place for car hops in my heart, and have dated a few. Okay, this is a master link in the pain chain. Okay, now, this is about, this illustrates a woman that's a muse for the septic service, see, for sewage hygiene. The name of it is Joe Copra's Septic Service. Now, from this particular painting here, there is a gallery in Bergamot Station called Copro Gallery from this painting. Copro is the Latin word for feces. Okay, here's just an action-packed hot rod picture. Here's a wild stretch of the imagination. Pirates and Martians fighting. Now, some people view the Tooth Fairy as an innocent little feign, just a pixie. But I've always seen her as someone that had a thing about calcium. I used to ride motorcycles when I was young, and I had this horrifying dream at night while riding a motorcycle hitting a glass truck. And the name of this painting is Hitting a Glass Truck at Midnight. This is a very, very large painting. At one time, it was in Nicolas Cage's collection. It's gone through a number of wealthy collectors' hands. The name of this painting is Death on the Boards. What people don't understand is in the middle of Beverly Hills in the early 20s was a gigantic wooden board track that they raced race cars on, right at Wilshire and Santa Monica. And this commemorates a day when 3 people were killed at the Beverly Hills board track. Okay, now, I always fancied myself something of a bohemian, whether I can help it or not. And this is a picture of Beats and Beatniks. Okay, you've seen a lot of these things up to this point, and many of them are just absolutely ridiculous. So this takes one step beyond ridiculous. This is about a fiend that gets children and converts them into jerky. This is absolutely vile and ridiculous. Now, up in the left-hand corner, you see a young girl with her hope chest, anticipating her future and her marriage and family, looking at the little baby rattle that she's going to have for the kid. And then somehow this thing gets perverted through an apparition into this child ending up as jerky from some fiend. The name of this painting is Theater of Snakes. The kid's riding his bicycle down the street. He sees a nun reprimanding a drunk. He sees a sailor kissing his girlfriend. He sees a dog urinating on a hydrant. In his mind, he's got it all backwards. The nun is kissing the dog that was urinating on the fire hydrant. He's also the drunk, and the fire hydrant's urinating on the nun. This piece of artwork was in Playboy magazine for a while. I don't know what to tell you about this. This is the name of this is The Girl with the Fabergé Ass. Okay, now I presume to present myself as something of an intellectual, and here I've got an unending portrait of Einstein as he's calculating a way to turn a human being inside out without killing them. So step by step it shows how to turn this young female nude completely inside out, and she's still alive with all the organs intact. Okay, this is Proletariat Rex. This is the king who wants to be with the people. He's out plowing fields with the serfs. And down in the right-hand corner, you see him using the toilet with the serfs in the latrine. He's sitting there taking a dump, telling it like it is with his friends. I'm sure you've all heard the term, the dog ate my homework. Well, I've got an abstract interpretation and a realistic and surreal interpretation of the dog that ate the homework. What would a dog look like that ate the homework? I don't know how many of y'all go to strip clubs and whatnot, but they've got a thing called lap dancing. And strip clubs are a very, very interesting place to do it. It's a very commercial way to see women. But I know pathetic people that really don't have romances in their life, and they kind of hang out in strip clubs and vicariously enjoy a social life. And this is a portrait of one of my friends that I stylized this after one of my friends. Now here we've got portrayed a pyromaniac, a firebug that goes to a strip club and inadvertently falls in love with a stripper. And of course, it's an unrequited love, and she rejects him. But then he burns the club down. Okay, this is a takeoff on a Picasso painting here. This is a minotaur that has gender problems. It's lost in a world of homosexuality. It's tried to be a ballerina and has failed.
Escorted to an American cruiser lying near the entrance to the Suez Canal, King Farouk of Egypt is first of 3 royal visitors to be piped aboard. Here he's received by President Roosevelt, accompanied by his daughter, Mrs. Anna Bediger. En route from...
This painting that goes into the story of King Farouk, the last king of Egypt, who was famous for being extremely overweight and enormous dissipator, wasted his life with women. Here's a painting. It's on an paleoanthropological note here. It's the Piltdown Man. Now, the Piltdown Man was, of course, a hoax, but I've represented him here, disregarding the fact that he was a hoax, and representing him here as a superhuman caveman. Now, here's a little girl with a big mouth that's got a World War I battle scene in her mouth, and it's so the name of this painting is Little Rachel Has Trench Mouth. Trench mouth came from the trenches in the First World War.
Robert, year-wise, we're out of the zombie mystery paintings now.
We slipped out as soon as there's no longer when they start becoming rational backgrounds. When they had backgrounds, I was on my own.
And so, obviously, your technique has gone from more of a slapdash, put it together in a day, to a much more detailed work, correct?
Matt, you're exactly right. And let me explain the reason why. You can walk around this event today and you see a lot of representational art. 25 or 30 years ago, if you walked around an event like this, you could find almost no representational art because abstract expressionism, minimalism, and conceptualism dominated the art world with an iron fist. What I have done is I have slowly and cautiously and slyly slipped representation of art back into the art world through cartoons. It's been an enormous struggle, and I faced a lot of problems with this. You're very fortunate that you can go out here and see any kind of artwork you want. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you had to deal with abstract expressionism. When I first started this slideshow, I showed you some extremely realistic pictures that sold for a lot of money, but I could not get any gallery to show them, any publications to deal with them, any museums, no one would deal with me at all, absolutely, because of the representation of art. So when I got involved with Gary Painter and the people in the punk rock movement, I had, as long as I was sloppy, I had a doorway into a peer group. There was no competition with them. I didn't want to, they were kind enough to allow me in their circles as long as my work looked spontaneous. But as I moved on, they went their way and I went mine, and I got enough foothold in the art world with other young people that had followed suit with what I was doing. Here's a gentleman that's let his vicarious life run away with him. His libido is off to the left there. That's his sexual self. That's the animal in him. He's looking at this lurid magazine, and his mind is being functioned by that character over to the right. Now, it's got vicious teeth and an enormous appetite, but it has an extremely small tool to satisfy himself.
Is this the same guy at the strip club?
The name of this painting is Driving a Square Peg Through a Round Hole, and you see this criminal stole a safe with the posse after him. He's trying to shove a square safe down a round alligator's mouth. This is a painting about a poor, pathetic woman that had never had children, that always wanted children, and in her later life somehow got hung up and infatuated with a root she found, and she adopted the root as a child. Okay, now, you know, I love dogs and cats. I really have a warm spot for them. But a lot of people, you know, it seemed to me an enormous injustice that people will make a fuss over a pet while there's people starving in the streets that are homeless. So this is kind of a little gesture here. The name of this painting is Don't Feed the Dog at the Table. And the dog is treated like royalty, while this poor guy in the back's digging through the garbage. This is a simple little cartoon called Tickle Pink, and it's done on a Wagnerian epic. It's done to way over-dramatize a silly little cartoon.
You hit me again, Ira! I'll kill you! Kill you! Daddy!
Come on with it, Tom.
No!
Okay, here's a colloquialism here, child bride. Okay? You've got this Appalachian scene over to the right here, this underage girl marrying this old hillbilly. This image is taken out of context and made into a decal on the rudder of a rocket ship. Okay, this is, when I was younger, I worked for a carnival for a while and whatnot, so I was very used to circus and carnival life, the color and flavor that went into it. Here we have a lurid alcoholic clown entertaining a girl in his tent. And apparently he likes to get a few drinks under the belt and shock her. So here he is shocking her. Now there is a bird in this picture. Can you locate where the bird is? That's right, the bird is in the snake's stomach. Okay, here's a Pollyannic sweet situation here. There's a convex diorama of these young women picking pansies out in the field. And then off to the right is this personage that's creating the pansies, cutting sections off her tail. This is a world I functioned in as a young man, the motorcycle biker world. So I know every detail of a Harley Davidson, and I, of course, enjoyed satiating in every nut and bolt, and not only the motorcycle, but the culture that it fosters. One unspoken rule in art, when you go to art school, is stay away from green. Green paint will mess your picture up. Salvador Dali would never use green. A lot of well-known artists, you know, to stay away from green. The name of this picture is The Fear of Green. I can't remember what the name of this title is, but it's about stealing people's personalities. Here's this ogre that doesn't even have a personality of himself and stole all these personalities. Okay. Here is this form, telling it like it is. And he's got a stenographer there taking down everything he says. And without the stenographer, he'd be like a tree in the forest that fell. This painting is a purposeful mystery. Why would a guy dress up like this cartoon character, the Smile Disseminator, and try to spread joy, disseminating smiles? What would be the point of this? If you notice his truck over to the left, it's got a parking ticket. Okay, this series of paintings like this were done extremely fast. This is the way the surrealists in the 20s and 30s used to paint. It's a very popular way of painting. You wipe the background on with a colored rag of oil paint. And then when that's dried, you get tracing paper and work your cartoon out and transfer the cartoon on there, and then you paint over the background. And in other words, in regular oil painting, you paint around the foreground. This is where you just painted the foreground over the background. This is two roosters at a cockfight, and they're made up with little cardboard knights on their back. This is Lancelot and Galahad, little roosters fighting with cardboard knights.
Everything's our cheap.
The new spark plugs. Reggie, how could you?
This is a very, very large painting with a lot of detail in it. That big central picture of a hat is called a whoopee hat. Some people later got the name of a jughead hat. It was very popular in the 20s and 30s and 40s with young kids. It was just a fedora cut down. Mom would cut a fedora down for the kid. And the kid would put little pins on it. He got out of cereal and whatnot. And you can see the evolution of the story. You see my comic book influences. Over to the left, Mom's cutting Dad's fedora up and makes the kid the hat. And he's sleeping with his hat. And down here at the bottom, you can see the kid with his little whoopee hat rolling a drunk. And then later he's peeping Tommy in a woman's window with his whoopee hat on. This deals with advanced physics, and it's dealing with quantum mechanics. And this woman's living in her reality, and sees her reality, and she misses the physics that are around her in this world. Here's another one of those quick paintings. Here is a very intricate and detailed painting. It's at the Tony Shafrazi Gallery, called Swap Meet Sally. And this is a painting that's just full of detail. Here's another painting full of detail. This is about dodo birds. Dodo birds cannot fly. And this is one of the last dodo birds. Someone got kidnapped and put wings on it and sent it to flight. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so I was familiar with Pueblo and Hopi Indian culture. And this is a scenario on Kachina dolls. Here is a painting that puts the audience in two different paintings at one time. You're in the living room apartment of a young girl in her pirate costume, and at the same time you're looking at inside the treasure trove of a buccaneer. This is a very large painting. And it has got about 26 landscapes detailedly painted in it. It's sold at Tony Shafrazi's gallery here last year. And the name of the painting is Persuasion of Right Angles. Everything in this painting is trying to jerk you off to a right angle.
And you weren't afraid of green?
No. They're all my children, man. They're all my children. Okay, now, me and Suzanne lived in Hollywood for a long time, and we knew the more nefarious aspects of Hollywood. So I did a painting called Hollywood After Midnight. So this shows the most over-exaggerated drama here in Hollywood with the devil in three faces. Okay, here's a bohemian artist that's still stuck with the abstract expressionist school who paints with a hammer. The name of this painting is a ball-peen hammer expressionist. It's a painting with a ball-peen hammer. Okay. Here is a young lady, fairly good-looking gal, that lives in her own world, and her world can't be violated with trivia. Here's a very interesting puppet show right behind her, and she is more interested in her date and her gossip. Go back to point out something. On this painting here, notice that there is a dog in the painting. If you're an artist and you ever want to sell a painting, put a goddamn dog in the painting. Okay, this is dealing with the subject of speed dating. This young girl is going through a lot of paramours, a lot of courting. The name of this painting is Court 'em All, Let Cupid Sort 'em Out. You can see Cupid's just one step ahead of her. And this is two facial expressions, an up and a down. That's a fairly simple painting, you know. It's cartoon dependent. You know. One thing about my paintings is, if you look at my paintings, you can always find a lot wrong in my paintings because I don't use photographs. I wing it. So a lot of realists just totally take photography and appropriate it, transfer it on canvas. Norman Rockwell and Salvador Dali went so far as to actually put emulsion on the canvas and transfer photos on the canvas and then stain in the paint on the canvases. Okay, this is a painting that deals with overpopulation. And you see this set of jaws that represents a maternity ward eating the world and its natural resources. And shooting out of its exploded maternity ward is nothing but babies going in all directions. Okay, here's a nonsensical painting of lassoing a section of the sky. This is in Tony Shafrazi's collection.
These were a little. Those were a little less detailed.
These were done very fast, and a number of people prefer this fast stuff over my tiresome tight realism. I got a lot of approval on this stuff, but as I told them, when I get older and sick and have my stroke, I'm going to be doing a lot more of this. Okay, this is Scully Dumpty. You know. Here's another one of those fast paintings. You know. Okay, now I'm sure you all know what a pie graph is. Here's a little Peter Pie graph, and he's representing the failure of the company. His section of the pie is incidentals that took up all the expense of the company and run off with all the money and left the company in ruins. Here's a statement on male vanity. And then here is a trick photo using an eclipse. Now, I've got into sculpture. I've always been a sculptor. I haven't done it in years, but I've gone back to it. There is a term for something that's overdone, that's phony and pretentious. It's an old term. It's called a diamond in a goat's ass. That's a diamond in a goat's ass. Well, this is the fulfillment of that term. It's a diamond in a goat's ass. Now this is fiberglass and steel. A lot of work went into this. Okay, here's my ecology statement. Brute waste, with this blind cretin holding the world up and then burning it with a blowtorch. Nice little keister on this fella. I took an interest in muscle tone. Now here's the sculpture I just recently did. It was such a success at the Miami Muslim Fair. This is the stamp collector, and it stands a little over 10 feet tall. And the lens and the magnifying glass is acrylic. He's got acrylic lenses in his glasses and the crystal on his watch. This fella is big, really big. Okay, this represents the piece of work I did years and years ago, and this is my signal that my little dissertation has come to an end here. If anyone has got any questions, or Matt, if you want to set me straight, I'm certainly at anyone's...
I want to say thank you very much. I think everybody enjoyed themselves. Are you headed more towards sculpture? Are you constantly making paintings and working on the sculpture? What are you doing right now?
When I did the sculpture, Diamond in a Goat's Ass, I went to underwriters to financially underwrite this thing. My underwriter said, we have to make these things exist. I am primarily a painter, and you can't sculpt a blue sky. You can't sculpt a storm. On the other hand, you can't walk around a painting either. To do a sculpture, you get the emotional feeling of the whole form in not only 3 dimensions, but sometimes 4 dimensions. Sculpture has always been a latent attraction to me, but I've never been able to financially underwrite to doing the projects. And I've reached a point in my life where I can pursue this quest.
So will we see more sculptures over the...
You will see more sculptures as long as I find underwriters.
And are there untold numbers of Robert Williams sketchbooks that are going to be revealed?
Not really, because I put all the sketches in all the books I've sold all along.
Oh.
So I've utilized all the material. I'm not Robert Crumb. I don't have hundreds of sketchbooks. If you have any questions, even if they're brutal, I'm here. I can answer these things.
Hey Bob, how are you?
Yes.
About your sculptures,
Yes.
what do you, before you lay the fiberglass, are you sculpting out of foam, or what are you laying the fiberglass over? Is there a mold that you're creating first?
I draw a set of drawings that shows the figure in 3 or 4 different positions. I sit down with a gentleman that's a computer expert. He takes my drawings and he interprets it while I sit there and I make the corrections. From that point, it's converted into a little 3-dimensional maquette, which has further problems, and I correct the maquette. From the maquette, it goes into giant pieces of foam. They're cut with a CNC machine. With that foam, I see an enormous amount of problems that have to be recorrected. Something that's 1/8 of an inch in the maquette, it's 10 inches in the finished figure. So the foam is covered in a hardener. Me and a few other people body shop that foam, make that sculpture perfect. The sculpture is then taken to a fabricator that gets a chainsaw, cuts that thing into little pieces to make female molds. From that point, he takes the finished castings and he puts a steel armature together that holds those castings. It comes back to my shop. We re-body shop the thing completely, like a car fender. and then we painted.
Days off.
Yeah.
And please describe for us what's a work day like for you, your average Tuesday.
And I got up at 4:15 in the morning and worked till the sun went down 7 days a week. Did an enormous amount of work, horrifying amount of work, to generate a body of work. Now you couldn't ask a student to do this, but I realized to do the goofy work I do requires an enormous sacrifice. I need a stable life. I need a wonderful wife like Suzanne. I need to watch my P's and Q's. I need to be tight with my money. And then I can be goofy with the art. See? Well, as I got older, I couldn't handle getting up 4:15 in the morning, working till the sun went down, burning myself out. So now I'm an old person, and I just work 7 days a week, 6 hours a day. Now, when I was young, I had an ego that couldn't be stopped. And I thought, any minute I'm going to be that big shot. But as I got older, I realized I wasn't going to quite be that big shot. But unfortunately, I'd already developed the work habits. Okay? So the work habits own me. So that's how I've got where I am, I guess, if you call it getting somewhere.
Robert, one question concerning your earlier work. There's a lot of food in there. And I always wondered about the deeper psychological dimension of food in your life, in your psyche.
It's as deep as you think it is. It's as deep as you think it is. It's as lurid as you can imagine. You know, that's part of being a mammal. You know, part of being a vertebrate is those natural instincts, and they offend an awful lot of people. We'll bring up the point of sophistication. None of us had sophistication. Sophistication's out the window and everything you saw. That's the characteristic of California and the West Coast culture, is it lacks sophistication. New York has the sophistication. It got the sophistication from Queen Victoria. What sophistication is in reality is inhibition. It's being constipated. California tries to be like New York and has failed, and has inadvertently created a world on its own, and I am a byproduct of that decadence.
Well, Robert, I think everybody was pretty thrilled to see this, and I know a lot of your work. I saw some stuff I've never seen before too. So, is this your first PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, it's always been slides up to this. Yeah, this is
the slide reel is definitely there. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.